Alright guys, it's your boy Kittens coming back to you guys with a new deck profile. This is Toxrill the Corrosive. For me, this deck is a really fun deck. It wins on like turn 9, turn 10, something like that. And it's made for me to do role playing and just super mega role play the villain and joke about COVID, where I basically kind of will give out a bunch of counters or dice because people have to start keeping track of the -1/-1s. Before their creatures die. So let's go over Toxrill the Corrosive really quick. It's a slug horror. At the beginning of each end step, you put a slime counter on each creature that you don't control. The creatures get -1/-1 for each of them, and then whenever a creature you don't control dies with the slime counters, you create a 1/1 slug creature token that you can play Dimir or play words, things like that, and that you can pay Dimir and then sacrifice one of those slugs to draw a card. The main theme in here, and we have a lot of fun, like little bit of thing. This is the deck I've tried to play: the unspeakable, peer, reach, and sift through the sands to see if I can get the unspeakable into play. That's definitely the fun win condition that I want to try to do. A bunch of the other cards, the main thing is to get Slogurk back to your hand or back to the field after it's destroyed and dealt with. And some funny ways to do it are foul renewal. The only downside is the get some like, wait, so man, I'm like reading through my old deck. I've had this one for a little bit. It's been maybe a month or so since I've returned. Oh, also, Arumi the Dead Tide. Arumi the Dead Tide is kind of a little bit of a secret commander in the background that'll kind of function doing the same thing. Oh, and that reminds me. Let's go over some of the fun big creatures before we do anything else. The Unspeakable, the Sift Through the Sands, the Peer. We play Spelltwine, Profane Transfusion, Sphinx of Uthin, and the Hullbreaker Horror. I don't have anything that goes infinite with Hullbreaker Horror. I just use them as a weird control counterpiece where there's a bunch of the 1-drops that are, or 1 CMC spells that are instants. And then we have our Noxious Gear Hulk, Sublime Epiphany to possibly copy something like our obnoxious Gear Hulk, the Mind Flayer to take a creature, Obnixilis Reignited, basically a bunch of removal and some counterplay stuff, destroy creature, power 2 or less. Nice little thing here. Oh, and Malevolent Hermit was really interesting, 2-drop that for the 1. That's actually real nice. And the Dimir Charm. Oh yeah, I guess I was thinking about Dimir Charm in the background. Our Wash Away and Syncopate as our instants that we can use to really take advantage of having the Hullbreaker Horror there. And outside of that, I think we also, yes, I have this pile separated for bringing some of our commander stuff back. Commander Beacon, Port of Carfell, Mortuary Mire, some of the lands that we use. Feigned Death, Supernatural Stamina, the Lancer. And the Mind Stab and Night Market are there because they're 1-drops. But Mind Stab is actually generically hilarious. You wait 4 turns to make someone discard 3, and you can target them when it's, like when it's actually being activated. But man, this deck has had a couple of fun games, and I want to take it back out to my locals. And some of the other lands that are like mildly useful here is Reliquary Tower, because you can have positions where you'd want to play something like, I'm thinking possibly Garruk's Wake to go in, and you end up with a whole ton of slimes that you can sack and use any of the extra mana to then, if you went the infinite route with Kraken, I would, you go Reliquary Tower and this, that, and the other. And then otherwise, my fetches, the Evolving, the Terramorphic, my Proxy Flooded, Proxy Scalding, Proxy Mist, all the fun, good stuff. And then we get into some of our dual lands. And I should probably hold these a little farther away from the camera. It's been a tough week, guys. I just got out of a psych ward, but this is going to be really, really nice to get back into. And now I would want to talk a little bit about some of the creatures that are specifically kind of really good for the deck. Grim Hireling is a really interesting one because when creatures start to die, you start to pile up these little 1/1 slugs. Well, if your opponents can't block, all of a sudden you're drawing 3, 4, 5 cards and can start trying to kill people and start trying to take over the board. The Ageless Insight is a really interesting one because you get double draw on the Slug Sack. Runo Stormkirk is a really interesting one because you can get the flip if you return your commander to the top of your deck. So there's a lot of situations in this deck where you're going to want to just leave your commander in the graveyard and just recur them. And then we have Death Baron, just that cares about stuff dying. And then into 2-drop instant, and then we do a little bit of Bloodcaster, Smuggler's Copter, yeah, a little bit of looting as well, so we can put something from our hand into the graveyard and then try to bring it back out. Like the Unspeakable, if we like randomly get the Unspeakable or something like that. Portal Mage, oh my gosh, Portal Mage is such a fun card to use. It is just hilarious to watch what happens. Okay. See, Curse of the Restless Dead, that's a much better card. Eon Frolicker, yeah, that's what I was thinking about. Eon Frolicker, I've been starting to put into a handful of my decks just to see what happens. Like, I want to see what happens when like I get to play it, like Eon Frolicker on somebody. I have not got the Eon Frolicker. Spiteful, Spiteful is a pretty good commander on side. Oh, Gisa is also Gisa the Resurrector. Start taking everyone's creatures as they die. Gisa plus the Slogurk on the board at the same time is such a problem, and I love it. So we have Blessed Reincarnation for some spot removal. Sludge Monster, Sayat's Will. Oh yeah, Consuming Aberration. This is one of those ones. It could just straight up end a game when you like play Aberration. It's an extremely powerful card. Doomweaver. Doomweaver is one that I want to see what happens with everything, but I still have not got to play. Not gotten to Soulbound with Doomweaver yet. And Curse of Surveillance. Definitely fun stuff. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about other than that is that we use a good number of mana rocks, Replication Ring, because we're really planning to win much later in the game. So Replication Ring is one we can actually, in this deck, realistically get to. Border Post is a cool one because we can get it out on turn 1. And then Power Stone, even though it comes out tapped and it has that 3 mana, that helps you jump right to that 5, to that 7. And then you can, if you have that land, you'll have 8. And you might end up in situations where you can play your commander and then also play a 1-drop, return something if someone tries to spot remove it later. Otherwise, just a bunch of mana rock fun stuff. And we already went over the lands, and then I think the last thing to go over is potentially how to make the deck a little bit stronger. If you wanted to make the deck a little bit stronger outside of that 8 to 10 range, start adding maybe something like the Garruk's Wake, where you can destroy everything from your opponent's side, and then you get slugs, like a whole ton of 1/1 slugs. You can sink a bunch of your mana into sacking the slugs after attacking. So like you go to your battle phase, attack, and then you go, use the rest of my mana to sack some of these slugs, draw some more cards. You end up drawing into a recursion spell or something in that, is maybe like more realistically powerful than the Unspeakable, but I am sure that I'll get to play the Unspeakable at some point in this deck. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this profile. This is one of those ones where there's not as much to say about it because I've only gotten to play the deck and really role play and have some fun with the guys just once or twice. So it's been your boy Kittens. Peace.